Welcome. Today's special topic is nutrition for endurance and for ultra endurance. So let's take a quick look at this. If your exercise duration is under 45 minutes, you don't need any carbohydrates for a typical workout, unless that workout is of extreme intensity. But if you're doing high intensity workouts of 45 to 75 minutes long, it's a good idea to ingest small amounts of carbohydrates. That can be bars, gels, liquids. It really doesn't matter. Choose. All of these are going to be effective. Now, if your exercise is getting to the point of endurance exercise, that would be 1 to 2.5 hours. You definitely need to fuel with at least 30, but better 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour. Glucose is fine for this. Again, it doesn't matter whether you have a sports drink or a gel or a bar or chews. Whatever agrees with your system is fine. Now, for events longer than 2.5 hours, these are endurance events and ultra endurance events. Research is supporting high carbohydrate intakes, up to 90 grams an hour for events for up to 2.5 hours. Combining both glucose and fructose, or sucrose and fructose, in your foods. Again, you can mix drinks with electrolytes and carbohydrates, bars, chews, gels, whatever it is that works well for you and whatever it is that you practice with. At 90 grams per hour, you're exceeding the general limit for gastrointestinal carbohydrate absorption. You have to train this and to get it up to 90 grams per hour, so at least once or twice a week for up to about 6 weeks. Ultra endurance events, data supports going even higher, up to 120 or even 150 grams of carbohydrates per hour. And essentially, you have to train this regularly. You have to train those kinds of carbohydrate intakes. You want your drinks not to be too concentrated. Otherwise, that will slow gastric emptying. But you definitely have to test the kinds of foods that agree with you and that you can maintain for ultra endurance events. Sometimes these are 12, 24 hours or even longer. You have to test to see what will work for you. So here are some ideas for ultra endurance nutrition. Bananas work for some people. Sultanas are full of carbohydrate. They work for some people. These are both quite high fiber options. Muesli bars work for a lot of people. Dates, white rice, or rice cakes, dried rice cakes work for a lot of people. White bread is a good choice. Sandwiches can work. Any kind of sugary lolly or snack can be fine, and some people like orange juice, although others find the acidity not to their liking. So, what do we know? We know, scientifically speaking, that very high carbohydrate intakes during exercise, there is accumulating anecdotal evidence of benefit. That is, most elite athletes are taking in very high carbohydrate intakes, at least 90 grams up to 120 grams or more. You can see this when you observe Tour de France cyclists, Tour of Spain, Tour of Italy, Ironman Hawaii. Athletes and marathon runners, they're all taking in higher, elites are taking in higher carbohydrate intakes than they have in the past. Now, there is also accumulating scientific evidence that this does benefit performance, but the scientific evidence is very clear that you need to train. You need to train nutritionally. You need to train your gastrointestinal tract for gastrointestinal comfort. This is not something you can try in your very first race. This is something you need weeks and weeks of adaptation to be able to do this. Runners in particular do not train with carbohydrates frequently and often have difficulty ingesting carbohydrates during races and become ill. So you don't want to be in this category. Practice your eating. It's another discipline that you need to add to your training regimen. So here we have it, 120 grams of carbohydrate per hour during mountain running. Is it possible? This was looking at an experiment which took about 3 weeks of nutritional training for racing and recovery, looking at different loads of carbohydrates. What you can see is that at 60 grams per hour and 90 grams per hour, once you get to 120 grams per hour, runners started to report a lower perceived effort, relative perceived effort level. Not only did they feel like the running was easier, the people in this experiment also noticed that creatine kinase, which is a marker of muscle damage, was much lower at very, very high carbohydrate intakes. So very high carbohydrate intakes will lower feelings of perceived effort during your racing and your training. And not only that, it reduces markers for muscle damage. So there are definitely advantages to up to 120 grams of carbohydrates during your ultra endurance mountain and marathon running. And here's a look at finish times in hours by carbohydrate intake. And what I hope you can see is that there's a correlation here, that the faster finishers are all using higher carbohydrate intakes. And this line is almost a straight line. There's a very good correlation between carbohydrate intakes and finishing times for Ironman athletes. This was back in Hawaii 2009. Now most athletes are up here in this 90 to 120 gram range. It was kind of rare back in 2009, but now it is the order of the day.